so I didn't record it like I said I would. So, refresher from last week. Last week we really talked more biology than anything, about how we came to be how we are, how we became girls or how we became boys. And we talked about some of the little things that could happen that might make that distinction a little less distinguishable. We talked about receptors, as Art remembered, and how those receptors affect all sorts of things about us. Literally everything. Receptors are how viruses bother you. Receptors are how chemicals engage with your body. Receptors are how food gets in and out of your system. Receptors, enzyme, you name it, receptors are kind of the thing. So we spent a lot of time on that last week. Does anyone remember why we talked about that last week?
Someone asked.
Very good. In general, it's because somebody asked. It's very good.
Because we needed to establish the difference between all the letters and the
Right.
LGBT.
So part of it was, if we're trying to understand a community that's within, the world around us, and they have a bunch of letters like LGBTQIA, it's kind of helpful if we know what those letters stand for, and maybe if we know some biological mechanisms that kind of make those letters make sense. So sometimes if we don't know, we just kind of lump it all into one thing. We think it's all the same thing, and we might even have disparaging or even hateful remarks towards that group, which is actually what Nancy had asked about.
Yes.
Was we know we're called to love everyone as Christians, but what else is there in regards to the LGBTQIA community? Is it just love them? What else is there? What does God have to say about this community? One of the reasons that we say it about that community, like we're supposed to love them, I think it's because it's really attached to this story, I think. The idea that, people have always wanted to have a group to hate. Christian or Jew, doesn't matter. We all want to have people to hate. If you're not into religion, you're maybe into politics, and boy, do you have a group to hate, right? Doesn't matter which side you're on, you hate the other side, right? And if there's someone that's in the middle, you really don't like them. Pick a side, right? Make up your mind, make a choice. We always want to have someone to dislike, but for whatever reason, especially now in our particular setting as Christians, it seems as though hatred of this particular group, in the minds of many, I'm not agreeing with it at all, but in the minds of many, they might think we're allowed to really dislike this group. But why do we pick this group? Why don't we pick the gluttons? Well, I hate those gluttons. We're okay with gluttons. Like, they probably shouldn't eat so much. And that's it. That's all we say. It never crosses our mind if someone's overweight to be like, you can't read a prayer. You're overweight, right? Those things don't cross our minds. But with this group, we say, no, these things are really, really important. Why? Why do we dislike so much? And maybe you don't, which is great if you don't. Sodom and Gomorrah. We're going to read it, but I want to see what your little minds remember from the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. How many of you are familiar with the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, first of all? All right. How many of you have not really read the story of Sodom and Gomorrah? You don't really know what it's about? Or maybe you know what it's about, but you've never read it.
Sin and the angels and the old bad boys when have a talk with the angels and make it nice and clean. That's it.
All right, very good. Yeah, there's definitely angels involved in this story. Leading up to chapter 19 of Genesis, which is where we're going, we've got Genesis 18, obviously, and that's the story of these three angels that show up, and they have a conversation with Abraham. Abraham and Sarah, you remember they come, and Abraham welcomes them, brings them into his tent. Sarah prepares a meal. They're very open, very welcoming, very loving to these three angels. They don't know that they're angels. They think they're just people, which is something that happens a lot in the Old Testament. You don't really see it much in the New, maybe at the resurrection, depending on how you read it. But in the Old Testament, this happens not a lot, but enough that you can recognize it when it's happening. They have this conversation with Abraham where they're like, actually with each other, should we tell Abraham what we're going to do? I feel like we should tell him what we're going to do. Because his nephew and family's down in Sodom and Gomorrah, and we're going to go and destroy that place. Because there's an outcry coming from the people. So the angels tell Abraham, and this is the famous story of Abraham saying, oh, if there's 50 righteous, please don't do it. And God says, okay, if there's 50, go 40, right? Goes all the way down to like 10 or 5 or something, I forget the number. And there's just really no one there that's righteous, according to the story. So Abraham's like, all right, I guess you got to destroy. So that's where chapter 19 picks up. We got a story, so you said angels and some nastiness, which we'll read. What else happens in Sodom and Gomorrah?
In it or outside of it?
What's that?
In it or outside of it?
Well,
But when,
in the story itself of Sodom and Gomorrah.
okay, well, was it Lot left the place with the children and the wife.
Mm-hmm.
When the wife don't look back, hard head. Back into a pot.
Yeah, a little pillar of salt there.
Look for there. Okay.
That also is a part of the story. Does anyone know how Lot ended up in Sodom and Gomorrah?
Yes, they would have disputes about the flock or cock or cattle or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And Abraham told him, say, look here, that's not right. You do whatever you want, and I'll take the other and not take the other land.
Right, so that's Genesis 13.
Yeah.
So leading up to the story, Genesis 13, does anyone remember what Sodom and Gomorrah reminded the biblical author of? He says it looked like some other place that we also read about in Genesis. The Garden of Eden. Right,
Very
so
beautiful.
very beautiful.
Great grass.
And it's no wonder Lot picks it, because he's like, I'll go down there. Things are looking really good for me and my family and my flocks down there. I'll go there. So that's how he ends up in this, what we'll find out is a pretty horrible place. It's a very immoral place. But is it a place where all the homosexuals live? Because that's what this whole class is on. Remember, it says on homosexuality. Sometimes we trick ourselves. We see the word Sodom, and we think sodomy, and we say, oh, there's the obvious connection there, sodomy and Sodom. Well, that's because we decided to create a word much later, out of the town name, to make it into the word sodomy. It's not because the Bible has the word sodomy in it. It doesn't. But we created a word from the town. So that was a later invention. What I hope to show you tonight is what the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah actually was, as opposed to maybe what you've always thought it was. It's an uphill battle. Yeah.
Well, I thought it was when the men come to Lot's house and want to have sex with the angels.
Well, that's part of the story, but remember, before that ever happens, there's an outcry.
Yeah, but see, that's where my mind was at.
Correct.
When I saw that, when I read that, then I said, all these people live this. They're going to be men have sex with men. That everything else is without the window.
Yep.
And I was wrong. Okay, I'm good.
No, this is good. This is good. So sometimes we're given information, and sometimes we don't know to question the information we're given. And so we just kind of assume that what we were given was right because that's what we were told. And it kind of makes sense. And so you roll with it. Yeah.
Those men that were at Sodom and Gomorrah, the angels blinded them, but they couldn't see. Am I right?
Do you say they blinded the men?
They blinded the ones that
Right, the townsmen. Yeah.
Your daughters.
Yep. They blind the townsmen. So we're going to read it. And it sounds like you know this story pretty well.
She's stuck on the head.
Well, I mean, and to be frank, the story is really all about the men. There's some women involved, the daughters, but it's really a story about men. The question is it a story about homosexual men, or is it a story about something else altogether? So let's read it. And like I said, I'm going to try and show you from the story itself and from other biblical passages that reference Sodom and Gomorrah, what biblical authors said the story was about, and then see if we can kind of work our way through it here. Remember, we're just talking. You don't need to get all worked up if you disagree with something. It's fine. Remember, our rule is you can disagree, but just don't be disagreeable. Right? Just be friendly in your disagreement, speaking the truth in love. All right. Genesis 19. The two angels, who we know look like men, came to Sodom in the evening while Lot was sitting at the city's gateway. We're going to stop for a second. Is there another story in the book of Genesis that talks about angels coming down as men? Anyone sound familiar?
With Sarah?
Oh, yeah, that's Sarah. That was right before this, actually. What's that?
The ones that Adam read it, was that the one you're talking about? Adam did come in the house, told him to come in the house and he fed him, that the angels.
Do you say Adam?
I mean, not Adam.
Abraham.
Abraham.
Yeah. So yeah, that's chapter 18.
Yeah.
Abraham invites him in. There's another story. I'll give you a hint. It's in chapter 6.
So they began to know
Yeah,
the
so
women of the earth.
yeah, so the angels saw the women of earth and they were beautiful and they took them as wives as they chose and they had children of renown and
Oh, okay.
all that, right? So this is the second time in Genesis where we see angels as men. They said these ones aren't coming down to mate with women. These are coming down and it looks like men are wanting to mate with them. So anyway, Lot was sitting at the city's gateway. Why is that important that Lot was sitting at the city gateway?
Shows he was important.
Yeah, so he's the leader of the townspeople. So way back when, if you had some sort of position of prominence in a town or village or city, you would typically sit at the city gateway. That's where the meetings would transpire. It's evening, so there's probably not any meetings, but Lot ain't leaving, right? He kind of knows now that he's beyond it looks like the Garden of Eden bit. He knows there's some squirrely characters up in here, and I need to make sure that people are taken care of. So he's actually kind of doing his part to make sure that any comers by who don't know about Sodom and Gomorrah won't fall into the hands of ne'er-well doers. All right. When Lot saw them, the two angels, he got up to meet them and bowed down with his face toward the ground. He said, "Here, my lords, please turn aside to your servant's house. Stay the night and wash your feet." This is very similar to Abraham also. Then you can be on your way early in the morning. Early in the morning, before anybody else sees you. This is very much Ruth kind of talk here, right? Like, okay, you're with me, but you got to wake up before the sun rises. I'm going to send you out with some grain. You remember that story from Ruth? Like, you do not want to be caught in this town as a strange man or two men. So they say, "No," they reply. "We'll spend the night in the town square." And he says, "Oh, no, you won't." But he urged them persistently. So they turned aside with him and entered his house. He prepared a feast for them, including bread baked without yeast, and they ate. So he's doing the things that Abraham had done. So we got two very hospitable people in a town of very inhospitable people.
I forgot that small detail about unleavened bread, but even before Moses was able to sweeten the bread.
Yeah, this is a rabbit hole. So the fact that it's unleavened bread is kind of a wink and a nod toward when the story was written, as opposed to, does that make sense? I don't want to go down that rabbit hole if that's okay.
Yeah.
We're going to have plenty to go down later.
Just a quick guess. Like,
Yeah. It
even
just it jumps out at you as you read it, like, without yeast.
back then, even back then, it's like a holier bread, basically.
Yeah, this is probably an indication that trying to show Lot as one of the few holy people in this town.
Oh, okay.
Down to the bread.
Okay.
Down to the bread that he makes.
Okay.
So he prepares a meal, just like Abraham had done. They sit, they eat the meal. Before they could lie down to sleep, all the men, both young and old, from every part of the city of Sodom, surrounded the house. So they really want you to know it's every guy, young, old, every nook and cranny of this town surrounds this house. They shouted to Lot, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so we can take carnal knowledge of them." Bible translations are funny. It just says, so that we may know them. But in Hebrew, to say, I want to get to know you, it's not, let's have coffee and chat. It's something else. It's carnal knowledge, right? It's carnal knowledge.
Intimacy.
It's very intimate. Although, does it seem like they want to be intimate? Intimate kind of has a connotation of love and affection. Do they seem like they want to just make love and be affectionate with these men?
They want to rape them.
They want to rape them. Why would they want to rape them?
They don't really want to get them.
Say that again.
Maybe they raped everybody in the place and they got some new meat.
Got new men. It's not so much, hey, fresh meat, as you might want to say. And we'll get to that in a little bit. It's actually, later on, the New Testament will say it's called strange meat. Literally, strange meat. You might think, oh, it's fresh meat. Finally, we're going to have some fun. Tired of all these same old guys all the time. Time to get some new guys. Where was Lot sitting again?
The city's gate.
In the city gate. And as Chris pointed out, that means he has some sort of level of authority. And now is Lot new to town? He's not brand new to town, but he has not been there for 20 years, right? He's been there for a short period of time. He's already established himself as the new guy in town with some authority and clout. These two new guys come in with Lot. They don't know who they are. They probably think, and they'll indicate this later, that Lot is planning to establish a whole new power system in Sodom. And they are not going to have it. Why do men rape men? Is it because they love men?
No.
Okay. These are important distinctions to make. Because remember last class, we tend to put everything into one lump and say it's all the same thing, and it's not the same thing. Why do they want to rape these men?
She's saying pure instinct.
It's pure instinct.
Animal
I think
instinct.
historically, there's been outside the Bible, just historically, there has been even heterosexual quote unquote men who will do those acts to their enemies as a power or dominance assertion, and it has nothing to do with a carnal desire as much as a power desire. Either way, it's still desire.
It's a lust, but it's a lust for power and dominance and control.
Right.
Not a lust because they just love men and they're so excited that there are new men in town.
Well, this is the same way. Women are raped.
Oh, when the
Isn't it the same
percentages,
thing?
yeah.
Yeah, if someone rapes a woman, if a man rapes a woman, you don't go, heterosexual.
Oh.
Right. Yeah, right.
Right?
Right. You go, oh, that's a criminal.
You say, a criminal,
He's a criminal.
a rapist. You don't go with sexual orientation. You say, that dude is messed up. They're messed up. Yes.
But you would have said, you wouldn't consider that with a man raping another man?
That's the distinction I'm making is if you see a man, hopefully you never see this, right? If you see a man raping another man, your instinct probably should not be, homosexual. The same thing you thought when you saw a man rape a woman, which is rapist, horrible person. Rapist, horrible person. Because the guy on the receiving end does not want to be treated that way. It's rape. So Lot is sitting in the city gate, and we'll get to it. It's an important detail. It comes up again later when the townsmen are really upset with Lot. Lot went outside to them, shutting the door behind him. Is Lot a man?
Yes.
Yes. Is he a man?
Yes.
Why don't they just get to know him carnally?
Right.
If it was a
Then you-
criminal
They lose his position,
homosexual,
right?
a perverse homosexual, because there's a distinction. You're making a distinction there. If it was a perverse criminal homosexual, it wouldn't matter what man it was. It
Right.
would just be the deed.
So let me ask you another question that I forgot to ask. And you might not know this statistically. Statistically, in America, it's actually true across the world, but in America, what percentage of people identify as homosexual? What's that?
2%.
It's a little higher than that.
3%.
About 10.
Oh,
It's about 10%. It's about 10%. It depends on the survey, but
He's not.
he's got it.
He's not paying attention.
Let's hope.
On this, the Bible
Mhm.
is, that we have here, it says that they're saying to have sex with them.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's what knows someone carnally. Like, this is why I always say translation is the first step in interpretation. Because unless you read Hebrew, which I do not, I'm relying on someone that does to tell me what that word in Hebrew means in English and what's the best way to translate it in English. And so you get a variation. Some will say, like this one, get to know them carnally. Some will say, we want to know them. Some will say, we want to have sex with them. Some will say, it's all the same idea, the same concept. How many men came from the town? What percentage of men came from the town? 100%. Right?
All of them.
It says all the men.
Yeah, all the men, young, old, from every town in Sodom, they all come out.
From every part of
Right. So these are all clues and indicators as to what's actually happening. Our problem isn't that we don't understand the story. Our problem is we've been told the story means something, and then we read it, and because we were told it's there, that's all we see. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So slowly you can kind of start to pick this stuff apart, and you may be like, I'm unconvinced, and that's fine. So Lot goes out of the house, shuts the door behind him. They leave Lot alone for some reason. He said, no, my brothers, don't act so wickedly. Look, this was Tracy Castleberry's favorite part. Look, I have 2 daughters who have never been intimate with a man.
Virgins.
Let me bring them out to you, and you can do to them whatever you please.
Oh my gosh.
Only don't do anything to these men, for they have come under the protection of my roof. If you've ever seen that movie with Mark Wahlberg, Lone Survivor, where he's out in enemy territory, I should have known. No one's seen any movies in this. You've seen it, right? Lone Survivor, Mark Wahlberg, he's a sniper. He's, as you might imagine, a lone survivor in an attack. And he finds his way into enemy territory, through enemy territory, and is hiding in a member's tent, who is part of the same ethnic group as the people who were trying to kill him. And the person in the tent says, he's under the protection of my house. So there are still cultures where if someone's in your house, that is a sacred obligation to protect them at all costs. Above your own safety and above the safety of your own family, you protect them. This is a huge contrast to the men of this town. Go back to the people crying out. The whole reason the angels ever came to start with. What do you think they're crying out about?
Their wickedness?
Their wickedness. The injustice. What do you think it must have been like to live in a place like this?
No respect.
Hood?
What's that?
Just like the hood. Just like the ghetto.
I'm just going to take your word for you on that one, because I don't know what life in the ghetto is like.
Rob, you've never been to the hood?
I've never lived in the hood.
Oh, no.
I've walked through the hood. I've done mission work in the hood, but I've never lived there.
Yeah.
I don't know what the day in, day out feeling is of, I just wish someone would do something.
You didn't miss nothing.
I sounds like I missed a lot, just nothing I wanted to have. Right? So there's all this injustice and perversion and wickedness, and people are crying out for someone to come and do something. Do you know in the Bible, in Hebrew, the word they use for it says, and the people of the town cried out? Do you know what other situation that uses that same word, cry out, is found? It's still in the Old Testament. I'm not thinking so much about which part of the Bible, but what situation in the Bible might someone else cry out for help?
A person or?
A person.
Oh, okay, because we have Abel's blood.
Abel's blood cries out. Of course, he's been violently attacked. Cries out in response to violence. I'll give you another hint. It's a woman.
Giving birth.
You're crying out, but you're not crying out because of violence and injustice. It's a different word.
A woman.
A woman who's crying out for help. Think about what we've literally been talking about. What were these men going to do to these other men?
Right.
They're going to rape them. In the Bible, when a woman cries out for help, the word that she cries out when someone's trying to rape her is the same word here. The townspeople are being persecuted by the leaders of this town, and the people are crying out because it's not safe. Injustices are happening. You can't, like Nancy said, it's like the ghetto. It's worse probably than the ghetto. It's not safe. But if you're in the ancient world, it's not like you can go, well, let's just pack our bags and go to the next town. What next town? How far is the next town? Will the people there accept me in the next town? They want someone to do something to make things right. But their leaders are only interested in preserving their own power. So when two newcomers come in and join the other somewhat new guy, they sense that there is going to be a power struggle. Out of our way, they cried, because Lot's in their way. This man came to live here as a foreigner, and now he dares to judge us. So they already sense that Lot is starting to think that he's the one in charge here. He's telling us what we can and can't do. He's trying to tell us not to do this and do this other thing instead. He doesn't get to decide what we do. We're in charge. We'll do more harm to you than to them. They kept pressing in a lot until they were close enough to break down the door. So the men inside reached out and pulled Lot back into the house as they shut the door. Good memory. Then they struck the men who were at the door of the house, from the youngest to the oldest, with blindness. The men outside wore themselves out, trying to find the door. Then the two visitors said to Lot, "Who else do you have here?" So in other words, remember the whole reason the angels went down was trying to like survey the place and see, is it really as bad as everyone's crying out that it is? And this is one of those interesting things that happens in the Old Testament. God seems to need more information. I've heard some outcries. You, go do a survey and report back. Like, if you're God, you don't need to survey and report back. Well, in the Old Testament, he does. You just have to deal with it, because that's what it says. So they've come down and they've seen enough. They don't need to stay here anymore. They know what's up. Everything we heard is true. Right? There are horrible, horrible people here. So they say, who else do you have here? Do you have any sons-in-law, sons, daughters, or other relatives in the city? Get them out of this place, because we are about to destroy it. The outcry against this place is so great before the Lord that he has sent us to destroy it. Then Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law. I always want to say son-in-laws. Sons-in-law who were going to marry his daughters. He said, "Quick, get out of this place, because the Lord is about to destroy the city." But his sons-in-law thought he was ridiculing them. We don't know why they thought that. But they're not going anywhere. And this is where we have the famous story of Lot and his daughters, which we are not going to read. Genesis has this way of tying from one story to the next. And it's hard to stop. So Lot and his daughters, they escape. Who was it that said the pillar of salt? Pillar of salt. You must read this story every day. Did you read it in preparation for today? Is that how you know so much?
I must have read this right 5 times.
I have it tattooed on my arm.
Tattooed?
So Lot and his daughters escape, and then they have the famous story of they think that the only ones left. And they're like, how are we going to repopulate the earth? And so they get their dad drunk and have children. Right? The Moabites, the Ammonites are descended from there. We're going to skip that part. This is just the destruction part. The sun had just risen over the land as Lot reached Zoar. Then the Lord rained down sulfur and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah. It was sent down from the sky by the Lord. So why did God destroy the cities?
People crying out.
People crying out for justice, for help, and no one seems to be able to fix this town. It is so bad. Is this a story about homosexuality?
Not specifically.
Not only not specifically, just not at all. It's just not at all. Right? Because these men are like, hey, some new guys, we should Take them out for coffee, have a chat, make sure you get to know them. Right? Not to be crude, but let's do a little wine and dine. No, there's no wine and dine. Because that's not what they're interested in.
They're not interested in having a relationship.
No.
But they are homosexual acts.
They are definitely men on men acts. But it's not a sexuality.
It seems like it's sexual perversion and the violation of an individual's sanctity, because rape is a horrific violation of someone's individuality. It's taking over, but it seems like it's sexual perversion without self-control, without putting the brakes on.
Yeah.
That kind of injustice.
I mean, if you were one of the other men in this town, you were humiliated by this if it was done to you,
Oh yeah,
if it was done to one of your children,
horrible.
you're dominated, you're controlled and manipulated. Right? And I don't want to be totally whatever, but we're on the topic, there's no choice. But this is what's done in prisons
Oh yeah.
and in wars.
Oh, yeah.
It's not because these guys are gay. It has nothing to do with them being gay. They might actually really, really like women, but they also want to make sure that that person doesn't cause them any trouble, and I will humiliate you and show you who's boss, and you will sit down, you'll do what I tell you. Because you've been dominated, and it breaks your spirit.
So when you look up the psychology about rape, it's not about sex at all. Actually, the gender does not matter. It's about power.
It's about power.
So it really has nothing to do with sexuality at all.
Yeah, it's not a matter of, I'm really attracted to you. You're not attracted to. It
Right.
has nothing to do with attraction, has nothing to do with sexuality. It has to do with, it's hard for us, I think for most of us, because this is probably for you, you'd never imagine in a million years that you're going to go rape a dude if you're a guy. Right? I'm going to go rape a guy and show him who's boss. Probably the thought itself disgusts you, right? Of using that as a tactic for power. But it is done. This is not an ancient world thing. It seems to be, unfortunately, timeless. Right? And it's not about attraction, it's about power. So, what did other biblical authors have to say? So, if you guys brought your Bibles, we're going to look up a couple different passages. And like last week, we'll probably go a little long. Maybe not 30 minutes longer like last week, but longer. Who has Jeremiah 23 verse 14?
I got it.
All right.
Jeremiah 23:14. Also, I've seen a horrible thing in the prophets of Jerusalem. They commit adultery and walk in lies. They also strengthen the hands of evildoers so that no one turns back from his wickedness. All of them are like Sodom to me, and her inhabitants like Gomorrah.
Right. So you've got this passage in Jeremiah when he's saying he's relating Israel to Sodom and Gomorrah. And it's not about sexual perversion. It's about mistreatment of people. You'll find the same thing in Amos. I'm going to skip these last two. Sorry if you looked it up, but I know we're going to go late, but we'll go really late if we read all these because it's like another 20 verses. So Amos, Zephaniah, if you want to mark these down, read them on your own, feel free to do so. But they all make allusions to the fact that Sodom and Gomorrah wasn't just a place of sexual perversion. It was a place of mistreatment of people. And that also stands out in the story because you can kind of juxtaposition how Abraham and how Lot treat these angels compared to how the men of this town treat these angels. Right? There's this huge disparity in the hospitality between these two groups. One that's really important, yeah, Esty.
I think there's also some, like, when I first, and I've read this story in Sodom and Gomorrah like 5 times. And like the first time I read it, I was like, oh, he's offering his daughters. Clearly it's a lesser sin. But now, like, I've read it many times. It's a context of women had less, like you were saying, less repercussions out of the pregnancy and a forced marriage. But if they were violated that way, usually they were given to the man that they were violated, unfortunately, but they were pretty much pre-promised in hand in marriage to that person.
That's true if we were dealing with a fully Jewish community.
I'm just thinking in
Yeah.
terms of
No, I mean, I like how you're trying to put the pieces together. It's not quite how it would have been in Sodom and Gomorrah, where the men could have raped the women and just been like, whatever, because they're not Jewish. Right? They don't have the law of Moses telling them to do otherwise, so they don't care. But I like where your head's at. I like it when you guys start trying to put the pieces together, even if they don't fit perfectly. I like that you guys are thinking things through and trying to like, well, wait a minute, if that happened, then this happens. That's great.
But it makes me think, like, why would he bring up his daughters and include his daughters in that? And I'm thinking there must be a reason why. Obviously, there's like, I mean, obviously he wants to put the men of God, which were the angels at that time, first above his own earthly children. But I'm thinking, why would he put his flesh and blood through that? And like, it must be because there must be some kind of protection or something for his daughters.
Yeah. The main point of it is actually in that culture. If someone's in your house, they have your full protection. You and your whole family will die before you let them get hurt. So it's a matter of hospitality. They took hospitality to more than let's come over to my house and have cookies. Right? It's like if I'm hiding you in my house is your safe spot. And Frank.
All the men were there.
All the men.
Okay.
Young men.
We have to really, I don't want us to overlook that. All the men were there. And so, all the men, I believe, okay, that all the men were not gay.
Oh, it's impossible.
So, you have to be very realistic to know that in many circumstances, I just want us to emphasize the fact that this was not, because I'm sure some of those men were excited about the fact that he giving up their daughters, his daughters.
Dude, what are you doing?
Yeah, like,
Why are you saying no?
hold on. And so what I'm saying is, and they said no, right? So at that point, I know it's not about.
Let me ask you another question related to that. Why do you think the young men are there and the old men? Why would you, as an older man, bring a younger man along with you to teach him your wicked ways? To show him how it's done. This is how we do it in this town, son. You're coming with me. Right? So it's like perverted discipleship. Right? It's horrible mentoring. But it's what it is. They bring the young with them so they can show them this is how we do it. This is what we do to newcomers. Otherwise, they might try and overthrow us. Look what Lot's already telling us. Don't do this. Don't do it. Who does he think he is? We're going to do worse to you than we're going to do to them. Right? They say that to him. Not because he's a man, but because he's pushing back against their authority. They're like, you don't tell us what to do. Who do you think you are? You know what? You're on the list too. It's like, and it's just like that. And all the young men go, this is how we do it. This is how it's done. Probably the best example we have, Ezekiel kind of gives a longer kind of description of what's going on in Sodom and Gomorrah. I'm only hesitating because I thought I had 2 more slides, and I don't. See here, this was the iniquity of your sister Sodom. Of course, Ezekiel's also talking to Israel. She and her daughters had majesty, abundance of food, and enjoyed carefree ease. Remember, because it was like the Garden of Eden. But they did not help the poor and the needy. They were haughty and practiced abominable deeds before me. Therefore, when I saw it, I removed them. Now, some people will get a little hung up on abominable deeds because it'll say in Leviticus, men don't have sex with men. This is an abomination. In the Old Testament and in the New Testament, for that matter, where are you going to see man-on-man sex? Think about it.
There's only two real old time. I mean, besides the Romans, and Greeks, they had relations that were legitimate. But within the
Probably not in the Bible, but just culturally.
Abrahamic
So
cultures.
you have wars.
it
Are
was-
you asking us in the
Wars.
Bible or are you?
Historically.
The Romans.
Historically,
The Romans.
where would you go? Romans, yeah. Even in Rome, where would you typically go to see, not that you want to, but where would you typically go to
The
see?
politicians.
Baths,
So,
bathhouses.
Bathhouses, temples. Temples. We'll get into this next week, but sometimes, remember, translation is the first step in interpretation. You're going to read verses, and your verse is going to say one thing, and another translation is going to say another thing, and you're going to throw your hands up and go, what in the world is this? So we'll work through some of that. All of the prophets, all of the time, are always preaching against pagan worship. This is what the pagans do. We're not pagans. We worship God. So yeah, when you see things like this happening, also though, not to be overlooked, is worshiping idols is also called an abominable deed. It's also an abomination before the Lord. So just because it says the word abomination doesn't mean it has to go back to Leviticus and the man on man part. It could just be going back to pagan worship. It's an abomination before God. Any questions so far? I had one more in Jude that I wanted to look at, but I don't have the slide, so we can look at it, but it won't be up here. Jude is that one book in the Bible that you don't ever read.
I've got this comment. It's not a question, but in Mexico, sadly, there's a culture. Not so much. I mean, it happens, yes, in the main metropolitan cities, but also in other states around Mexico, where the men or some male figures rape other male younger figures and sometimes teach them, and they say, if I'm the one who actually penetrates, I am in control and I'm a macho, but I'm not gay. And it's that whole thing about power and control, which is the perversion aspect, the
Yep.
power and control. And yeah, you're right. And once, I mean, right here in Ezekiel, he's saying, you guys didn't strengthen the hand of the poor or the needy. So he's saying, even though there was pride, there was those sexual perverted sins of this out of control power. And you also didn't care for the poor and the needy in the same line. In other words, that's also terrible when you don't take care of the weaknesses of the poor and the needy, and we have no compassion.
And so, I mean, in reality, when you read through the Old Testament, you find out the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah, it's not homosexuality. The sin of Sodom and Gomorrah is greed, violence, coercion, manipulation, dominance, injustice. That's why everyone's crying out. The people in the surrounding towns are crying out, going, someone help us! There's so many gay people. Like, no, it doesn't even make sense. It's somebody help us. I'm being oppressed. I'm being abused. I'm being neglected. I'm being coerced, right? Those are the things. I do want to I just pulled up Jude here while we were looking at it. So it says, verse 6, just in case you don't know, Jude is a super bizarre book. It's also very short. And you might think, well, it's bizarre. Why haven't you talked about it? It's really bizarre. It's super bizarre. So, and the angels who do not keep their positions of authority, but abandon their proper dwelling. This is a reference back to the Genesis 6. Those he has kept in darkness, bound with everlasting chains for judgment on the great day. In a similar way, Sodom and Gomorrah and the surrounding towns gave themselves up to sexual immorality and perversion. They serve as an example for those who suffer the punishment of eternal fire. Does anyone have a translation other than the NIV?
I got New King James.
All right, what's New King James say?
So this is right before Revelation, right? Jude,
Yep,
verse
verse 7, really.
7. He has reserved in everlasting chains under darkness for the judgment of the great day, as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities around them, in a similar manner to these, having given themselves over to sexual immorality and gone after strange flesh,
Oh, there it is.
are set forth as an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire.
Right, so strange flesh.
Strange flesh.
So, We once had a person that pulled me aside after church one day. Not a member. They visited multiple times and then didn't like me and left. But it happens. I pointed out to her. She was saying, no, homosexuality just means men having sex with men, and that's it. It's like, no, that's not really what it is. She's like, no, that is what it is. She was very upset with me, which is why I always say, chill. Chill. We can disagree, but not be disagreeable. Do you know what literally in Greek it says? Hetero flesh. Yeah, that's where we get the words hetero and homos from the Greek. Hetero is other, homo is same. So it's not that the men are wanting to have sex with men. It's not a homo attraction. It's a hetero attraction. The thing that makes them hetero is that they're angels. Not that they're men. That would make them homo. If they were men, homo, like same, right? If they were just men, then you wouldn't say this. And it gets translated a myriad of ways, but it's actually sarkos, homos. That's what it is in Greek. Sarkos is flesh, homo is same. I'm sorry, it's other. Homo is other. So when it says they were pursuing sexual morality and this unnatural desire, that's not unnatural desire is not a very good translation. I mean, it is once you know what it actually says, and then you can understand what they mean when they say it this way. But when you just read it like this, that could be anything.
Yeah, that could be.
Like, I don't even know what that means actually. But it was the fact that they were desirous of this other strange flesh. King James doesn't get much right as far as translations go. It's got a lot of weirdness to it, but I got this one right because they literally just translated it almost exactly what it says. Strange flesh, other flesh. So sometimes people will jump to this and say, oh, well, this is about Sodom and Gomorrah. It talks about, unnatural desire. That's talking about homosexuality. We start kind of constructing this web of, connected dots, but we don't even really know what it says. We read one translation, like, that's what it says, because we don't know what it says. So anytime someone says, oh, this is about homosexuality, remember the word there is hetero. Right? Strange flesh, not same flesh. And literally the only way to have a strange flesh is for it to not be human. Because men and women we have the same flesh.
That's what I was saying. When it said unnatural desires, it might be crazy to us, but it's a very broad. And it doesn't say unnatural sexual desire, right? It just says unnatural desire.
Yeah. And so it's not a great translation. This is the NET. NET has thousands and thousands of footnotes. We're already at, where is it at? AI. So they go through the entire alphabet and then they start over again. So we're at like footnote number 37 when we get to this one. And there are only 7 verses in. Lots of footnotes. And what do I always say when you're reading your Bible and you run to a footnote? What do you do with the footnote? You read it. Because they're trying to tell you something that you don't know and you won't know unless you read the footnote. Mm-hmm. You won't know. They put them there for a reason. Because they're going to let you know, hey, there's something weird here. You should check it out. Let's check it out. Strange flesh, the Greek. This phrase has been variously interpreted. So then you can read it is that long.
Oh.
Super long footnote. And it goes through the history of translation. They've done a translate like this, they've said it's this, the problem with this is this, and they kind of give you a back and forth, and then they tell you, so we went with unnatural desire. Just to kind of circle back to the original part of this, which is answering part of Nancy's question, which is, we're supposed to love them, and we're not supposed to hate them, but why do some people hate them? I think in large part it's because we read the story of Sodom and Gomorrah and we say, God killed them all. God doesn't like him much either, right? And like, there it is. I'm not supposed to hate him. I know. I'll pray for him, but I'm not going to talk to him. Or, whatever it is. I think we get it because we've really misunderstood this story altogether. The other thing the story does, if we read it just that one way, is it relinquishes us, those of us who would say, well, I'm not homosexual, so that story has nothing for me. Right? We've made it about somebody else's sin. Made it about their problem. If you view it as a sin or a problem. And so we've made it all about something that maybe they need to change over there. There's nothing I need to change. I'm good. I'm one of the 3 that made it out. I didn't even turn around, right? I made it out. One more note. What time is it? All right, almost done. And then you guys can share some thoughts. One more note is, Sodom and Gomorrah is not the only story in the Bible we have that sounds just like Sodom and Gomorrah. Did you know there's actually 2 stories that are almost identical? Sodom and Gomorrah and another one. I'm pretty sure you know it, Lana, because I've taught them this. You're almost all my classes. Judges chapter 19.
Oh yeah,
The concubine.
Ooh.
You read the story of the concubine and you compare it to Sodom and Gomorrah.
Ooh.
So here's what I think is going on in Judges. Like everyone else, Israel had a way of looking at this story and making it about this other group of people who are horrible. But you read Judges 19 and they find out we're horrible too. They use the exact same story, same plot, everything. But now whoever's writing that story is like, this isn't just about those people over there in Sodom. This is about us and how we treat each other and how we treat people. It's a horrible story. Horrible story. That one is X. Who was talking about ratings? Yeah, that one's really, really bad. Sodom and Gomorrah could have been worse. But the angels blinded them and took away all their power. Right? They exhausted themselves trying to find the door, right? The angels removed all their power. They couldn't even find a door. So there's all sorts of little things happening in the story that are important to pay attention to. But you really gotta like stories too. You gotta really dig in and like the story. Otherwise, you might not get a whole lot out of it, which is fine. That's why we come here, because typically we'll get more out of it together than we do by ourselves. All right. The floor is yours. Let's try and finish in the next 10, 12 minutes or so if we can. 12 minutes. Start a clock. Start a timer. What do you guys think? How is this different than what you've heard before? Is it different than what you've heard before? We don't all grow up with the same teaching, so this might have been the first time you've really read through it in detail and thought, well, actually it makes sense. Is it different than what you grew up with?
Yeah, and in 21st, but we just stuck on one thing and you can't be rigid. You're so rigid, We're not open-minded enough.
Yeah. The problem with being rigid is you just never learn anything.
And that's not good.
I mean, you can have your convictions, and that's fine, but you have to be able to have some fluidity there.
It was very helpful to put some historical context because me as a modern person with law, I know we're jumping back, but I'm jumping back. With law being at the city gate, I'm like, oh, it's a security guard. Like one of the lowliest positions.
Right.
And I had no idea that meant like someone of authority.
Yeah.
Which threatened.
It's the same place that Job would sit. In the book of Job, he would sit at the city gate. And he was one of the highest ranking people in the East, as they would say in the Bible. Yeah, those details are important, especially when the townspeople bring it up near the middle of the story. Like, who does he think he is to judge us? Like there's a connection there. There's a literary connection there. What's going on?
I never thought about that.
Yeah. Another side note too, people will sometimes say, man, these biblical authors, they're just a bunch of shepherds, they didn't know nothing. They haven't read the Bible. There are some deep thoughts and connections, like literary structures and things that happen within the stories that are really, really compelling. But you got to be patient, and you got to stick with it. And you got to grab a book and a person and sit down and really study it. You know. Somebody else.
Each generation comes up to different things, and my generation, if you knew somebody, thought you knew somebody that was gay, you went on the other side of the street. You would talk not to have nothing to say, you know, don't associate with them. If you made fun of them, you looked them behind their back. All kind of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, these people have been condemned for years, I'm sure. And,
You guys want to do a little science?
Yeah.
Yeah? So, what did people say about AIDS when AIDS first hit the scenes? What was it?
monkeys and everything else.
Well, the monkeys,
It's
but
a gay person disease.
it was a gay person disease. And what did Christians think that meant?
It was the fire and brimstone of today towards those people.
Yeah.
Yep, I mean,
It's,
that's.
yeah.
And yeah, it was this. Let me see if I can find it. Where is it at? He says. There's another word that says they've taken this punishment into themselves. And we'll get to this passage in detail later. Somewhere in chapter 1 in Romans, I can't seem to find the verse. It talks about they kind of had the punishment in themselves. And to John's point, people would say, AIDS, well, that's God's curse on the gays. You probably know this part. Like, most of us in here are old enough to remember when HIV and AIDS was super scary.
Oh, yeah.
As my physiology teacher would say, it's like, it was so scary people stopped having sex. That's how scary it was. Because it was. If you got it, you're dead. It might take, because HIV virus just sits in your body latent and just waiting for the right moment. And then it unleashes and it destroys your immune system and you die of a cold. Or you die of some random, you might even get sick with something that literally no one ever gets sick with because your immune system fights it. But theirs doesn't, because the HIV virus attacks your T helper cell, which is the one that makes all your immune system cells work and proliferate and become more. You stop producing immune systems, basically. Immunity cells, you just stop producing them. Did you know that there's now a pill, and this part you probably do know. There's a pill you can take if you catch it early, and you're fine. It can keep that virus so under control that you might not even be able to detect that you have it. Just a pill. Do you know what that pill does? It blocks a receptor.
Oh my God, receptor.
We're back to the receptors. It blocks a receptor. And so the HIV virus cannot attach to that cell, that receptor. And so it can't. So, I mean, the virus is in there, but the virus isn't really able to do much because it can't infect the cell, and therefore the cells can continue to produce their other immune cells. Isn't that weird? So when people said, like, that was the curse on the gays, like, well, God's curse got overthrown with a pill. Doesn't make any sense.
The first part of the verse you were looking for is the last part of 47, the very last part, received in themselves the due penalty for their
Yeah, right here. Thank you. Yeah, this is the verse that people would say. This is what was quoted when I was younger, where I grew up, that they would receive in themselves the due penalty for their error. And preachers and teachers and lay people are like, that was God punishing the gays with AIDS. So, well, first of all, plenty of heterosexuals got HIV.
The first, I was looking it up. The first person of notoriety to receive it was Arthur Ashe.
Tennis
So,
player.
he got HIV, who made blood transfusion. This is how we ignore science, right? We ignore all, and he was married, right? Now he was very feminine like in his demeanor, right? But and being married doesn't mean anything. But it was scientifically proven that he got HIV through a blood transfusion after having a heart attack. So how we came up with this being a disease born of people who were gay, I have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when Magic Johnson contracted it, and you ever wonder, well, why does Magic Johnson, like, that dude never got sick? Why did he get sick? Well, because normally you don't know that you have it until your immune system is destroyed. Because remember, the HIV will just hide in your immune cells and just kind of make its way throughout all those little helper cells that help you create more cells. But they don't really do anything. They're just latent. They're just sitting there. But then, boom, they turn on. And by then it's too late. The pill that they give you for HIV, it's not going to help you at that point because your immune system's already toast.
Well, if you saw the movie Philadelphia, that would be very reminiscent. And I hate that they did it the way they did because that guy was gay in the story. But the other thing is that what also hurts Magic Johnson is his son, right? And so that kind of lent itself, even though it was before he came out. And then, you know, it's just so how we popularize.
Yeah, and the only reason I bring this up now is because it's dangerous for us as Christians to make proclamations about things that we do not understand and say, well, God's punishing them for this. One, you don't know what God's doing.
You have no idea.
You don't know because you're not Him, right? You're not God, so you don't know what God is doing. You can't really speak for God. Oftentimes, you'll make a proclamation, and then years later, you'll find out, oh man, they cured the curse with a pill. Like, oh man, you didn't do a very good job of cursing them if you can take a pill every day and be fine. Like, there are things like this. We need to be very careful. I've told multiple people this. I think I told your daughter this once. I think anyone that's going to be a preacher should have at least an associate's degree or some level of education in biology. Because otherwise you're speaking about things you don't know. You don't know what you're talking about. You know, you're taking somebody else's word who also doesn't know what they're talking about.
We do that in religion all the time. So,
Yeah. And for me, and this is why I told Art and I'm sorry, Aubrey or Audrey?
Audrey with a D.
With a D.
Audrey.
Sorry. My thing is, well, I have two rules in life. Love is above all. Truth is right below it. Tradition is way down here. Almost non-existent. It's only important because sometimes people I love think it's really important. So then it's gotta move up the ranks a little bit because of that. But just my own personal, I don't really care about tradition. What I do care about is truth.
well,
And
some
if-
people think truth is tradition.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem. Is we have given tradition a lot of truth, and that's the problem.
Yeah, and tradition in and of itself is fine. But if truth is contrary to tradition, then you go with truth.
Absolutely.
I think it's a no-brainer,
It's
but
not-
in real life it's not. In real life, it's very hard to let go of tradition. It's very hard to let go of things that you've believed your whole life because you might have an entire system of thinking that's based on that tradition. And then someone comes in and goes, pops that bubble. It's an experience. It's an experience because then everything starts Your mind starts reeling. Yeah.
So you were asking what we got different today from the previous understanding or
For Sodom and Gomorrah, yeah.
yeah, my big one was the injustice, the older men with the younger men, and I went a little bit deeper with an observation of the pedophiles. And here's what I mean by that. A little boy, or a little girl for that matter, but a pedophile, that little, pure little soul, indefensive, just that little life there is starting to grow, and then that monster comes over that little human being, thrashes that, the damage that it's. I mean, it angers me. If it angers me, I can just so much relate to how it angers the Almighty, the Creator, over that little baby boy or baby girl, and yeah, that. So I see. I mean, imagine the outcry of the human heart, of a little boy that just got raped, or a little girl from a pedophile. And it's just. I mean, it's unspeakable.
Yeah, and in Sodom and Gomorrah, it's probably less about pedophilia
Yeah.
and more about just straight up dominance.
Yeah.
Go teach them young who's in charge. Pedophilia is more in the ancient world and in the New Testament world. It's really more something that you see happening in pagan temples, which we'll get into because some of this what we see here. Men abandon their natural relations with women to be with other men. And remember my question before was, what is Paul seeing? And other people around him, what are they seeing that's making him write this? What Paul, and we already know this part is true, what Paul is not seeing are gay couples walking through the streets holding hands, taking their kid to school, or that's not what Paul is seeing. But what is he seeing? Our problem, and again, goes back to the social construct conversation we had a few weeks ago. We have a way of constructing life that they didn't have. Mm-hmm. So when we read that, we think gay people. That's just what we think. But that's not what was happening.
Absolutely.
So what, and this is just a teaser for next week. What you'll see is what Paul's really seeing is men who are probably married, not just Paul, everybody. Men who are married, they have families, they're going to the pagan temple, and they're having sex with the male prostitutes in the temple. Sometimes those male prostitutes are little boys.
But I think the thing is that there's some points, regardless of the Bible, even if you never cracked it open in a day in your life, it's pretty obvious, like crimes against children, any crime against a child, or any violation of any person's personal autonomy is just the worst kind of crime. And crimes against children, even if you've never been and never heard of Jesus in your life, we all know crimes against children, any crime against a child is the worst kind of thing, because Jesus even says, let the little children come to me. And if children are the ones that are,
it'd be better if you cause one of these little ones to stumble, it'd be better if you put a milestone around your neck and jumped into the ocean and drowned yourself. That's what Jesus says.
I think that's why we don't really need to talk about it, because it's all obvious, like it's the worst thing.
I agree with you, but I want us to be very, very careful. Historically, when we look at kings and we look at the power structure, remember, we have betrothed young people at very, very young ages, right? And so we have to be very, like, you could have a king that's 40 years old betrothed to a 12-year-old, right? So their construct of that in our age, what is that?
I mean,
Right.
but technically,
Right. And so what I'm saying is that wasn't a sin during their time period.
I mean, technically, Jewish people still think you come to Rumble at 13. You are.
Right, but again, today that is
Right. Yeah, we have a whole different way of seeing the world.
absolutely.
It used to be you were considered adult basically when you hit puberty.
That's right.
You're ready to marry. And now it's like, You're 24 and getting married, you're so young. It's a different world. And again, without trying to figure out, well, which one's the right way, which one's the wrong way, just know that it's different. And kind of bring that understanding with you is like, the way that I see the world is not the way Paul saw the world. He lived in a way different time. I mean, if you were to write a letter to a church today, imagine someone 2,000 years from now reading it. 2,000 years from now reading that letter. And figuring out, how much of this applies to us today? 2,000 years have passed. You're going to have to go with some principles. Because a lot of stuff has changed.
Yeah, we trying to call.
So, anyway, this is where we're headed. We're going to find out, we'll do some translation work with what often gets translated as homosexual, remembering that that's an English word. What does the Greek say? What does it mean? Kind of dig into that. And then we will go from there. This class has been way more fun than I thought. Like I said when I first started, I've kind of avoided this topic because it's such a hot topic and people can get really worked up, and you guys have been great. So even if you're like, I don't think he's right, that's okay, but you've been great, and that's more important. Remember, love's first and then truth, so that's been really good. Nancy.
Well, it certainly has opened my eyes, and I'm pretty sure the last is here to what homosexual is, and from the biology point of view, it really opened my eyes. That never crossed my mind that things can happen to a body that the person has nothing to do with it, and cause them maybe to have male and female organs.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I mean, and realizing
it's not their fault.
Yeah, and realizing that actually most things that happen inside your body, you have no control over.
That's true.
Probably like 99% of the things happening in your body, you don't have any control over it.
You can control our diet and exercise. That's about, and sometimes we can't even control that.
Well, I thank you for taking on the.
Thank you for bringing it up. It is something that we needed to talk about.
I do, and I still need more. I need more.
And it's touched, like I know people that have tried to teach classes like this, and they had to find themselves a new job as a preacher. Because it's just such a hot topic, and it's like, for some people, it's crystal clear what the Bible says. And how could you possibly, you must not even know God, and you're out. So I'm just hoping that doesn't happen here. That's all.
But do you realize it's being talked about in, not from my home, if you were reading, I just happen to do this, I don't really read any of the news, but it was brought to my attention that Tylenol or some.
Oh yeah, the Tylenol.
That causes autism.
Yeah.